Okay, welcome to video blog number 29. This is the last video blog in the 10 section, so there's going to be a new intro next time. I'm not sure when the next one will be. It's not going to be 2 weeks, I know that for sure, because I have to work on the intro, see what I can come up with. Right now I'm fresh out of ideas, so I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'll figure something out. What I want to go over in this video blog primarily is Star Wars, which I haven't actually discussed. I know you guys all know that I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I'm really into Star Wars, but you guys haven't actually heard me speak about Star Wars before, I don't believe. And I was going to discuss the prequel trilogy versus the original trilogy, which I kind of got sparked about talking about this because I remember a few months back, I had a friend come up to me because they know I'm like into Star Wars, and we're like, "So Antoine, what's better, you know, that trilogy or this trilogy or whatever?" And then I would tell them like, blah blah blah, I think this and that, and then which I'm gonna explain what I think about that, what I think about the prequel trilogy. And then on T2 Dartlinton's videos, if you guys don't know T2 Dartlinton, here's his URL. You can check him out. He does video blogs like me, mostly. He doesn't call them video blogs, he just does them. I think he calls them video blogs, or whatever. And on his thing, he did this thing called Making of a Hero, and he was talking about this writer, because, you know, it was the writer's strike or whatever, and then there was this interview with this writer, and he was talking about this project he had, and how he didn't want to give it to, like, George Lucas or Steven Spielberg, and he wanted to give it to Steven Spielberg because he ruins endings to movies, which I agree with. I think he screwed up AI. Minority Report was really weird, and War of the Worlds had a very bad ending. So yeah, I agree with him with that, with Steven Spielberg. But then he said he didn't want to like hand his project over to George Lucas because of Star Wars and because of the prequel trilogy, and all the bad flack or whatever that the prequel trilogy got. And I made a comment saying, well, you know, he gets a lot of bad flack for the prequel trilogy, but if you really think about it, it really isn't that bad. And here's my reason for saying that. And I didn't understand why the prequel trilogy was getting so much bad flack. In fact, I watched this fan documentary. I forgot the name of it. I don't know. But it was about these fans who were camping out to see episode 1. There was one that went to like the Man Chinese Theater down in Hollywood and some other place. And what happened was, like, after they saw the movie, they were all, like, hype about it. They were like, oh my god, episode 1, Star Wars is back, I'm so happy, or whatever. And then, like, reviewers, critics and stuff were, like, saying, what's George Lucas doing? He's made the worst film ever. He's ruined Star Wars, or whatever. And really, for the fans, that wasn't the case until those critics started talking about it like that, to the point where it was like, you know, this is not as great as the original trilogy was, but, you know, the kids were loving it, and some of the old fans were loving it, but it wasn't until the critics were saying, oh, I don't like it, until, like, people started saying, oh, you know what, Star Wars, the prequel trilogy sucks. And I personally think that because I think people are weak. I mean, we are. Humans are weak. We always go with the trend, and it's harder for people to have their own mind and take the mind from, you know, the mindset of a critic or whatever. So if a critic is saying wada wada wada, then, you know, more than likely the audience is gonna, or the consumer audience, whatever they call it, will do the same. And I think that's what happened, is that, and plus it's easier to say if something is bad than good, because it's harder to defend something that's good, like something that you like. It's harder to defend that than saying something is bad, because you can just say, oh man, that was crap, and then that's the end of it. You don't have to be like explaining it or whatever, like this is why it's bad. Some people do that, of course, but, you know, most often it's easier to say something's bad and then it's just done with. It won't be questioned. But if you say something's good, you have to like back it up or whatever, like I am right now. Then the prequel trilogy came, and it wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good, which thus made it disappointing. And then therefore, since it was that disappointing, people in their minds made it, and plus with the critics saying it was, you know, it was bad, people kind of in their hearts were like saying, oh, maybe these films are really bad, but they really aren't that bad. I'm just gonna read off my comments right now. First, some guy Conroy 98K said, SilentBat's, have you seen Star Wars Episode 3? Worst acting ever? And I'm like, well, and I comment back and I'm like, I suppose you think Mark Hamill did much better in New Hope, because he was like a whiny, like, I mean, I know that's how Luke is supposed to be, but if you read the novel, he's really not, and the acting in that was not as great. I mean, he did a lot better in Empire Strikes Back with you know, his conflict with his father, and then Darth Vader, and then with Yoda, and he had to train, and he had that whole, you know, sequence with Yoda, and he did really great in that. But really, you can't, like, you know, knock off the prequel trilogy for their acting or whatever. They had solid acting. I think what people really are trying to critique is that the chemistry isn't there as much as, like, you had like Han Solo and Leia Organa and Luke Skywalker, and they had like really good, they were a good team, they had good chemistry. But then, like, with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padme, Anakin Skywalker, they didn't really have chemistry. They weren't really together. There wasn't much of a interaction, or yeah, there wasn't as good of an interaction with the characters there. And okay, I'm just gonna read off my reply right now. Reply number 1. Believe me when I say I was in the same boat as you, Conroy98K and Invalid Nickname, about the prequel trilogy, but over the general shock of how much they lacked. Wait, what am I meaning? Oh, but over the general shock of how much they lacked compared to the original trilogy, I have found that it is not a horrible series of films as all do. Yes, lost most of its magic, and the chemistry between the characters wasn't very great, which I mentioned before. And I continue and I say, I remember I was listening to this podcast a little ways back, and these dudes were making a really good point about the prequel trilogy and how it should have started at episode 2. And it had, and instead of episode 1 being episode 1, Phantom Menace, it should start as the Attack of the Clones, and it should have started there, and maybe, like, you know, gone over episode 1, like, in a quick, you know, like, 20-30 minutes just to go over, like, how they found Anakin, blah, blah, blah. Because, if you started at episode 2, you would have gotten a much better new episode 2, which in my mind would be the new episode 2, because that would have gone over the Clone Wars, and really that's where the Jedi really changed, because, like, their morality is challenged there. Because if you read all the books and the comic books that take place in between movies episode 2 and 3, there's a lot of conflict that the Jedi have to go through, because they have to go from being, like, peace to, like, to soldiers and, like, commanders, and that was like hitting hard to their morality. And I remember there was a book called Shatterpoint. Miss Windu, it's a book about him. It's really good. It's by Matthew Stover. You guys should go check that out. Very good book. And he had a lot of conflict with having to, you know, because he had to go back to his home country, or not home country, home planet, and he had to face the horrors of war, and he had to choose, like, being, like, a, you know, hardcore war man instead of being, like, a peace person or whatever. And it would have been much more effective if episode 2 went over that, you know, that arc, and then that would have actually helped with Anakin, because with episode 3 he turned just like that. It was just like, no, when you don't kill him, okay, I'm dark side now, I'm Darth Vader. But, like, it would have helped a lot more if it was a longer transition for him going to the dark side, but it wasn't done that well. So yeah, so I said yes. The prequel trilogy does have its flaws, even beyond just Anakin's transition, but it's not as bad as the famous people say it is. And then, like, that's what my ending was. And then the guy's like, oh man, you really have a lot to say about Star Wars. And, like, I guess he didn't think I knew much about Star Wars, because I just plainly said, oh, it's not that. And then he was like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I didn't make fun of you, man. But yeah, so that's my thing on the prequel trilogy. Enjoy the films. Don't try and, like, hide it and say it's horrible, because they're really not, and you know it's not, and I know it's not. Come on, let's go. I'm out. Peace.